In this video, we're going to be having a look at how you create 2D curved terrain inside of Godot. We'll have a look at closed shapes, open shapes, and how to set up the materials for them. We'll also have a look at how you can add collision shapes and at how you can snap objects to the terrain. Sounds good? Then let's get started. So Godot doesn't come with this functionality by default, but thanks to Robert, Guy, and Ryan, we have the awesome Smart Shape 2D add-on, which we'll be using today. Let's start with installing the plugin. So inside of Godot, let's go to the asset library, and then let's search for Smart Shape. And then let's click on this plugin right here. Let's hit download, and once it's finished downloading, let's click install, and again. Once it's finished installing, you will see that I created a folder called addons, with within it a folder for the plugin. Now the add-on is installed, but it's not enabled yet. So let's go to Project Settings, and then go to Plugins, and enable the Smart Shape 2D add-on. Now everything is properly set up, let's start with creating a closed shape. So let's go and add a node to the scene, and going to Node 2D, let's scroll down, and here you will see a couple of new nodes. You'll also see some nodes and resources that are prefixed with RM shape. These are old nodes and are deprecated, so don't use them. What we need is under SS2D shape base. And we will start with a closed shape. So hit create, and you will see that a couple of new options appeared in the toolbar. The first one is for creating points. So let's use that to create our basic shape. It has to be in clockwise order, otherwise it gets kind of messy. You can remove points by right-clicking. And once I have my basic shape down, I prefer to switch to the second tool, which lets you select points and move them around. This tool also lets you subdivide existing lines. So now we have a basic shape down, let's add some background texture. For the background, I have this basic 16 by 16 round square, and you can add a pattern to it if you want. So once you've dragged the texture into your project, let's select it and then go to the Import tab, and then go to Presets. Let's select 2D Pixel because it's a pixel art texture. And then one important thing we need to set is the repeat. Let's set that to enabled, because we want to repeat the texture over the entire shape. Let's hit re-import, and then go into presets, and let's set it as a default for the texture, so we don't have to do this again. So now let's select our shape, and then in the inspector, let's go to shape materials. And here you will see all the fill textures. Let's select fill textures, and then change the size to 1. Here you can drag in your background sprite. So hop. And then you might need to drag around one of the points for it to update. But here we go, now we have a background. Now let's add textures to the edges. I really love how they introduced this in the wiki. Like, texturing the edges. This is where the rubber hits the road. The real meat of the tool. Yeah, they're not wrong, but this part is also kind of difficult. So pay attention to what I do. So with our shape selected, let's go into Edge Meta Materials. So open it up and change the size to 1. In this slot, we need to select an Edge Meta Material, and you'll see this massive list of resources. This is currently a bug with Godot itself. But let's search for, there we go, SS2D Material Edge Metadata. Let's open it up, and you'll see a bunch of new properties. First we need to set an edge material, and then we need to scroll all the way down again. And let's select SS2D Material Edge. There we go. If you go into this resource, you'll see that there now is a slot for the textures. For the edge texture, I'm going to use this 16 by 16 grass tile I made. Now let's go into textures and increase it to 1. And I will drag in the grass texture. And here we go. Now we have our edge. And now let's change the underside of the shape to dirt. So once again, for this I'm going to use a 16 by 16 texture. But you might be tempted to draw it upside down because it's going on the underside of the shape. But for all textures on the edges, they have to be facing upwards. In the edge metamaterials, let's increase its size to 2. And let's close the first entry. And now we need to go through the entire process of selecting an edge metadata and an edge material again. Now let's add the dirt texture by dragging it into the texture slot. As you'll see, the dirt now overlaps the grass. This is because we need to set up some constraints for when to show the dirt and when to show the grass. If we click on the grass meta material, you will see that there is a normal range resource. If we click on this, you will see that there is a begin and a distance value. But first, let's talk about what a normal range actually is. The easiest way to think of an edge normal is as a line perpendicular to the edge. So this edge right now has an angle of 0 degrees. And if we rotate it, it will now have an angle of about 55 degrees or so. And if we rotate again, then it has an angle of about 90 degrees, and so on. So what we want for our shape is that the grass starts at about this angle, and the same on the other side. If we now put these arrows inside of the degree circle, you will see that we need about this range, which starts at 45 degrees and ends at 135 degrees. So now let's set this in the editor. In the grass materials normal range resource, let's set the begin to 45 degrees, like on the degree circle. And you can drag around the distance to see its update. So the distance from 45 degrees to 135 is 90 degrees. So let's set that to 90. So now we have the grass on top. You also see that the dirt continues behind the grass. So this is something you might want, like I kind of want, but in case you don't want it, you can go into the dirt material and then set the begin to 135, and we want the range to be about here, which is 270. And now you can see that it stops when the grass starts. But I kind of like the look when it just continues behind the grass. So let's set the values back to 0. So now that we've finally finished the material, for now, let's have a look at some more ways you can manipulate your shape. Let's finally add some curves. So select the second tool in the toolbar, and then hold Shift and drag on a point. You'll see that it gets kind of messed up, but if we drag it the other way around, there we go. We have some nice curves. You can reset the curves by right-clicking, and you can also manipulate the Bezier handles individually. Feel free to mess around with this for a bit and create a shape that you like. If you want to learn about more shortcuts, you can hover over the tools, and in the tooltips you will see all the shortcuts. But I want to teach you about one more shortcut that doesn't seem to be mentioned in the tooltips. If you want to create a new shape with the same materials, you can hold Alt and Shift while having one of the first tools selected. So let's hold Alt and Shift, and let's click to add a point. Now let's release Alt and Shift, and you can add the second point and create a new shape. But now, for some reason, the grass renders behind the dirt. So to fix that, let's go into the shape material and edge meta materials, and let's go to the grass. And let's scroll down to the Z index and increase that to a higher number. So we're sure that the grass will always render in front of the dirt. Now that we've finished that, let's now have a look at how you can create open shapes. First, let's save our materials. So with the shape selected, let's go into the edge meta materials and let's click on the grass material and scroll all the way down. And then let's hit save. I'm going to create a new folder called materials. And then let's just name it grass. And now, as you can see, we have saved the material as a separate resource. And then let's also save the dirt material. An open shape works pretty much the same as a closed shape. In the shape material, let's go into the edge meta materials and let's increase the size to 2. And then let's just drag in the grass material and the dirt material. And now let's reselect our open shape to make the options in the toolbar reappear. Let's add some points to create the open shape. It has to be in left to right order, otherwise it doesn't work properly. It basically works the same as the closed shape, so feel free to mess around with this for a bit. Now that we know how open and closed shapes work, let's have a look at how we can improve the materials. If we have a look at the closed shapes, you can see that the textures get kind of warped at 90-degree corners. To make this look better, you can add corner textures, like this one. It has to be facing up and to the right. Then let's go into the dirt material, and then into the edge material, and let's search for textures corner outer. Let's open it up and increase its size to 1. Let's drag in the corner texture. And as you can see, it already looks a lot better. On some places, it might not show up, so you might have to move the points a little. It has to be about a 90-degree angle. And you can do the same for the inside of a 90-degree corner with a texture like this. And it also has to be facing up and to the right. Here you can see that the dirt texture goes behind the grass and gets kind of warped on this side. Let's go into the textures corner inner and increase it, and let's drag in the inner corner. And there we go. That looks so much better. Now let's have a look at how we can make the edges of the grass material a little bit more interesting. For that, we can use taper textures. These are the textures that will show up on the left and right end of a material. To add these, let's go into the grass material and then the edge material. And let's go to textures taper left. And let's increase the size to 1. Let's drag in the left taper texture. And for textures taper right, let's also drag in the right taper texture. Now, we'll see that it created a bit of a curved ending edge. It doesn't show up on the other side for some reason, but if we subdivide the top edge, you'll see that it does show up. So the tapered edges might look a little bit weird sometimes. You might need to tweak the points and the curvature a little bit to make it look better. This depends on how much room there is for the texture to stretch. So tapered edges might not be all that useful for closed shapes, but they are for open shapes, to make the ends look a little bit nicer. But the problem we have right now is that the dirt texture goes behind the grass and makes the edge square. To fix that without losing the other material, let's duplicate the dirt material and let's call it something like dirt with normal range. Let's go into the material and then, into the normal range. And then we need to set the begin and distance of the normal range again, which, if you remember, was 135, and 270. And then let's go into our open shape and let's replace the dirt material with the new one. And now, as you can see, it created a nicely shaped ending edge. That looks pretty good. Nice. So before we move on to collision shapes, let's have a look at how you can change the material of a specific edge. For that, we can use the Edge Property tool in the toolbar. If you then hover over an edge and right-click on it, a menu will appear. If you click Material Override, you can enable and disable the rendering of an edge, and you can also set a custom material. So you might think that you can now select the dirt or grass materials, but it doesn't really work that way. For that, we need to save an edge material. And no, this is not an edge material, this is an edge meta material. The edge material is this resource right here. So if we want to save the grass edge material, we can go into its edge material, and in this menu, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and let's hit save. But it complains that we need to make it unique first. Ah! So let's go through the process again. Let's make it unique. And then again, then let's save it. And then let's let you save it. And in the materials, let's call it grass edge material, which is going to be kind of confusing. So you might want to make a separate folder for this, but I'm lazy. And then once we select the Edge Property tool again and select our edge that we want to change, let's click on Set Material and we can select the Grass Edge material. And there we go. It now renders the custom material on this specific edge. So now that you've mastered creating the materials, let's tackle the most difficult part of this entire process, creating the collision shape. You press this button. And that's about it. If you show the collision shape, you'll see that it creates a nice collision polygon. But the only thing we might need to tweak is the collision size. If we zoom in on this edge right here, you can see that the collision shape doesn't properly follow the edges. With the shape selected, let's go into collision and let's lower the size value. And there you go. Now you can see that the collision polygon follows the shape a lot better. So now that our collision shape is finished, let's move on to the last topic, which is snapping objects to the terrain. Let's first hide the collision shape again. And for this we need to add a special node. Let's go under Node 2D and scroll down to SS2D Shape Anchor, and let's add it to the scene. In the node's properties, let's assign a shape path, which will be our shape. And then you will see that it snaps to the first point in the smart shape. And to attach anything to the anchor, we can just make it a child of it. So if we drag in the sprite, you'll see that it will automatically rotate to the rotation of the anchor. Then let's select our sprite and move it a little closer to the anchor. And then let's select our anchor again. And let's change the shape point index. This is the point in the shape that the anchor snaps to. And the shape offset is between the selected point and the next point. So that if we move this around, you'll see that it moves between the 2 points. Let's increase this all the way so it shows on top. Then we can tweak it a little so it fits nicely on top of the grass. And there we go. Now it can slide nicely over the grass. So you've made it to the end. I am so proud of you. Now you can use this knowledge to create the next hill climb racing game. Or, I don't know, you can create a Sonic fan game? So if you have any questions about this plugin, or if you've created anything cool with it, be sure to join the Smart Shape 2D Discord server. Here you can share the things you make, ask questions, and talk to the developers. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I enjoyed making it, and I will see you next time. Bye bye!